You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Welcome all and welcome in. It's the Insight NFL Podcast, bite-sized edition tonight, or this morning, I should say. Plays to buy low and sell high before week 10, Mav. This is our, I'm losing track. My memory's not too good. I think this is our third, fourth, however many edition of dropping these shows out. Again, we touched on last night's waiver show. Week 10, we're heading into the NFL season. We've only got 5 weeks left of the regular season. So really you need to be making these moves probably 2 weeks earlier, but you've still got some time to move some players around. And we think if you can move off these guys or bring in these guys, you can have a pretty good return and set yourself up for the long haul. But how are you feeling as we inch closer towards week 10?
Yep, feeling good, man. This is a fun episode, to be fair. As you said, bite-sized, but fun. It's engaging for trade talk. We only give a few names, but it does definitely open up a window of possibility of what you can do. And despite us not actually mentioning any players that we could sell high on or buy low on, the players that we actually mentioned that you could trade for could also be options there too. So just a little... it just gets your mind tinkering and gets it moving. So yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does help. I know after when we record this show, I'm looking through trades. You know, the guys that you've got here tonight, one sticks out to me like, you know, my God, but I just wasn't thinking about it whatsoever until you threw it up there. So great options there. A lot of things to get the mind tinkering. Again, last night's waiver show, if you did miss that, link is in below. And our Supercoach trade show will go live tonight at 7:30, as per usual on Wednesdays. Like we do, it is the 5th of November when this one is getting out. So let's get straight into it. We'll kick off with sell highs. We've got a player each, and then we'll head into buy lows. But Mav, your first sell high that we have, and I will pull this up. Hopefully, I don't cook this here. Oh my God. Romeo Dobbs, your first sell high.
Yeah, Romeo Dobbs is my first sell high. I cannot believe that he's actually the wide receiver 23 on the year. And he said he's buy. Usually this ranking would be accurate if they had a week 12, week 13, week 14 buy, but he's already had it. So that's incredible to me. It's also a bit wacky to say that he's a sell high option at this point now that Tucker Kraft is gone. And now he could be the genuine number one option in this team. But again, this is your selling point when you try and sell him on. Tucker Kraft just did a knee. Dobbs is getting plenty of targets with Tucker Kraft. Now, what's he going to get without Tucker Kraft? So, you know, this is your sell high point. Jaden Reed's due back soon. I think Matthew Golden will eventually start coming to the party. Now that Tucker Kraft is gone, maybe it is Matthew Golden's time to step up and come through. So, yeah, as I said, Jaden Reed's only, you know, he might start practicing this week. So he's probably only, 2-3 weeks away maybe. So he's due back very, very shortly. But yeah, Romeo Dobbs, man, to be honest with you, I haven't really rated him. Despite him being underrated, I just don't rate him as a fantasy option. He's on waivers in one of my leagues, and he's a wide receiver 23, which says a lot about him. He's number one. But the problem is they feed Josh Jacobs a lot, and he is the offense. So Jordan Love, he's probably just a slightly better than average QB. Nothing special, nothing bad about him, just an average, slightly above QB. I don't think he elevates anyone at wide receiver. But I think it's time to get off Romeo Dobbs, sell him high, try and cash in on the fact that Tucker Kraft is out and he's ranked way too high from where he's at. So, look, there's guys there that I'd probably try and move him on for. I mean, I'd try and get Deebo Samuel plus for him if you like down that route. I mean, there's no McLaurin there at the moment, so that's not a bad option. And, they just lost Jaden Daniels as well. But you can get Deebo plus. Same with Zay Flowers. You can get Zay Flowers plus, Stephon Diggs plus something. Maybe Ted McMillan plus something. There's options there. But look, Romeo Dobbs, you wouldn't just trade him on for nothing either. I'm not saying he's worth nothing because I think he's worth quite a bit. But again, that schedule does get a little bit more difficult over the coming weeks. But he's still seeing 8, 9, 10 targets in most games after week 3. So that should probably continue, but it's time to get off that train too. I think that's the perfect sell high chances now.
I love this one, Mav. It's a bit savvy. People could be thinking on the other turn with Tucker Craft going down, maybe Dobbs is going to step up in a massive way and he could be a potential buy target. But I'm with you. I think in this, with the Packers, all these receivers going down, Tucker Craft going down, they're probably just going to run the ball more. It looks like Josh Jacobs is healthier coming off that calf injury. And also Christian Watson is emerging, and I think his snaps will just keep going up, and Dobbs might take a back seat once we get onto it. Debo for Dobbs, I think you'd easily be able to get done. I'd much rather have Debo on that offense where they're probably going to have to pass the ball a whole heap because that defense is just about as battered and bruised as their offense is, which is hard to say. So Romeo Dobbs, love this one. Mav, I will roll straight into mine. Hopefully I haven't cooked this. That's why I asked if you wanted to go first, because I just had a feeling it'd be cooked up. Just kidding. My sell high here is Justin Herbert. Probably a bit of a harder pill to swallow just because of how good he's been and how good he looks, especially with Madison Beer by his side there. But Herbert, QB quarterback 2 on the year. He's been an absolute stud. He did have a couple of down games earlier on in the year, and that was week 5, week 6, even week 4, 12 and a half, 14 and a half, and then 18 and a half in that 3-week stretch from week 4 to week 6. During that stretch, that was without Joe Alt as well, their star left tackle. He was dealing with a high ankle sprain after they already had lost Rashawn Slater, their other star tackle, at the start of the year. It's been confirmed Joe Alt is done for the year. He's got to get surgery on that ankle. It's not good. And in turn, I'm looking to cash in on Herbert because of this fact. He still has his bye to come up. That's in week 12. So again, if you can move him off for somebody off their bye or even on their bye now and kind of get a week back that way. But their schedule coming up, Pittsburgh next week. Pittsburgh have been pretty susceptible against the pass, but again, they are tightening things up. Jacksonville, week 11, they've been pretty tough all around, and then the bye in week 12. The one that sticks out to me that I'm trying to move off of Herbert, because again, I'm always looking for the playoffs. I'm looking for that championship week. They've got Houston in week 17. I know they've got Kansas City and Dallas 15 and 16. Again, nice spots. He should do pretty well there, but Houston in week 17, I don't want absolutely anything to do with Justin Herbert. Not saying that's the only reason why, but Joe Alt going down, I think, is a massive impact. That one that will probably fly under the radar a little bit much because, again, he's not a prime fantasy player. He's not a wide receiver. He's not a running back. So it's not really going to look to dip Herbert's value on the surface, but I think it really will hurt him moving forward. And in turn, Marion Hampton, still reports coming out, he's probably not going to even start training until after their week 12 bye, so week 13. So again, big hit for that offense. Kamani Vidal, we saw he's been super flaky in the 4 starts that he's had. Bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation there. So for me, looking to cash in on Herbert. I know even in Dynasty, I've got him in a league, in the Dynasty of Insight League, actually, Mav. So I'll be trying to move him for a guy that I think will probably be better rest of season. Still 27, still young, but in terms of redraft, I think you'd be able to get an absolute haul for Herbert. Patty Mahomes, he's on bye this week. If you're in a good spot where you can kind of take that week on bye now, I'd be looking to try and get Mahomes. You might even be able to get a little something on top, perhaps, if the manager is, dealing with a non-500, non-500 record there and is needing the players now. So for me, Justin Herbert cashing in quarterback 2 ranking while he's still got his bye to come as well. So again, like you touched on, those numbers can be a little bit inflated when they haven't had their bye. So for me, quarterback 2, Justin Herbert, he's a sell.
Well, I've really liked Justin Herbert this year. I've really, really enjoyed him. I think he's been fantastic, to be honest with you, especially over the last month where he's just had to excel without Hampton. So, but you're right. If you're going to sell, this is where you sell really high, right? I don't think he's going to get. He's going to finish the year as a QB2. I don't think he's, maybe top 5, but not QB2. So, the only hard part is if you're selling Herbert, you want a QB back. I don't think you'll get Mahomes plus personally, but what do you get after that is the question. That is just a hard one to work out. But again, depends on your squad layout. If you've got QBs there on the bench that you can play instead, like Matthew Stafford, for example, if you've got him sitting on the bench stashed, he's obviously playable. He's a top 10 QB at the moment. So you can almost sell Herbert for a skill position player that you're more needy on. It could be a really solid running back or a really solid wide receiver that you don't have. That might take you to that next level that you can insert Stafford in, or one of those guys that are around that mark, and then insert a premium level skill position player. So I like the play, but I also really like Herbert too. I think it's hard to sell him, but if you're going to sell him, we're selling high. We're going for big time here. He's 20. He's averaging 26 points over the last 3 weeks. So that's big time.
Yeah, he's been lights out, and it's a hard sell. Maybe, even harder trying to buy Mahomes for Herbert straight up. Probably getting a little bit too greedy with the extra on top, but even straight up, I think you'd be able to get Herbert or get Mahomes for Herbert in that turn. Yeah, or a big skill position player like you touched on, Matt. There's definitely a heap of avenues, but at this price, it definitely will not get higher than what it is now. Buy lows, Mav, and this was the guy that I was mentioning at the start of the show. It makes so much sense. Hopefully he gets his quarterback back soon, but this guy is just set up to absolutely smash for the rest of the year. Here he is right now.
Yeah, big Georgie Kittle, eh? We thought at the start of the year that this guy could be the tight end one, or was in that conversation for being that tight end one. He started off really well and then got that injury in the second half of that game. Hammy out for 4 weeks. That was a tough pill to swallow from the get-go. And then he sat for, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then came back and had a goose egg. So that's 6 weeks he's had there of nothing. Week 7 against Houston, tough matchup, had 12.3, had a touchdown in that game, 4 catches for 43 yards, a touchdown. And then we're thinking, all right, George Kittle must be back now. He's back in the game now for fantasy, and then comes in a really green matchup against the Giants and has 4 catches for 32 yards. So I think that owner would be looking a little bit nervous at this point in time and looking to try and fix him or move him. But this is the time where you can buy low compared to the start of the year. And I think that despite him being an average play to this point, I think that the grass will be greener for the next 7-8 weeks left of fantasy football season. So I think he's a really nice little buy low option. Look, in terms of what we sell him for, I wouldn't be looking to trade any sort of locked in starters for you, as in like locked in. Well, honestly, could you get a Romeo Dobbs done for? We say sell high, but I don't really rate a Romeo Dobbs. But can we get a Romeo Dobbs a Kittle trade done, for example? So for me, it's a buy low because I don't really care about Dobbs, and I think that you know what I mean. Like it's sort of like it's a 1-1 special here, but George Kittle has to be bought. I reckon if you can get him in, you need a tight end, or you're desperate for a tight end, then you can do it. You've got the exposable players on the bench. I think he's worth it. Would I move on a Kiami Vidal for him, for example? I probably would. Even though Kiami Vidal has had weeks where he's been really good, and then some weeks been really, really bad. But again, if you're tight end needy, George Kittle, I think he's a smash play for the remainder of the year. I mean, you got the Rams next week, Arizona, Carolina, Cleveland might be a tough matchup, and then Tennessee, Indiana, Chicago on the playoff run. So that's going to be a nice little of those 3 juicy matchups in the playoffs, might I add, and then a couple good plays in there in between. So I think he has to be bought.
Yeah, he's a smash buy low. And looking at it, tight end 38, that just doesn't register when looking at George Kittle. Like that's definitely not what he is whatsoever. And yeah, you're right. That playoff schedule, Tennessee, Indy, and Chicago. I mean, week 17, if you get there with Kittle in your lineup, you could go absolutely ballistic up against those guys. Hopefully Brock Purdy comes back and you can get a deal done before that news is announced, because I think definitely he is the boat that raises everything for that team. What about Oronde Gadsden for George Kittle straight up, Mav? Is that something like he's the hotness at the moment? He's been super well. But, I think for me, I'd be more than happy to move Gadsden for Kittle at this point of the year.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. tight end for tight end trades are gross. I'd never ever entertain it. 1-for-1 tight ends, might I add. Maybe in a package deal, sure, but 1-for-1 tight ends are just disgusting, and I feel as though that never works out for anyone. So, but no, that's perfect. If we want to talk tight end for tight end straight swap, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Possibilities are endless when it comes to trades. You could throw a few things out there, maybe let them know, hey, when I see you next, I'll buy you coffee. I don't know. You can try and get cute with it. Definitely don't do any outside deals, but there's a lot different positions for sure. George Kittle at the end of the day, absolute smash. Even with his bye to come, he's going to be lights out rest of the year. We like to think. My buy low, Rome Odunze. Again, wide receiver 19 mightn't seem like a buy low on the surface, looking at it from a holistical standpoint, but Rome Odunze just goosed up against the Bengals, which should have been the best spot. We've seen wide receivers absolutely blow the Bengals to pieces. Rome Odunze is the number one wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. This game to me was just a complete blip in the radar. I'm not taking anything for what it was. They tried a couple of trick plays in this one. I think Caleb Williams had 2 catches himself. So again, I think they were just they knew this matchup. They could kind of play around with their food a little bit, so to speak. And they just kind of left Rome Odunze in this one. He did have an end zone target, which didn't go through. So again, if he did catch that, his day probably would have been saved, and there wouldn't be an opportunity whatsoever to buy low on Odunze. But I think after this bye, or after this donut week, he had a couple of down weeks after the bye. He had an okay game against Baltimore last week, 7 for 114. But I think rest of season, things will really start to open up for Rome down the stretch. He's off his bye. He's tied to a good play caller in Ben Johnson. Caleb Williams is probably there in the question mark. But I think looking at it, I'd much prefer the wide receiver schedule compared to the running backs that they have coming up the rest of the year. They've got the Giants this week. Again, that's an easy matchup all around on paper. But then Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Philly, Green Bay, and then the playoffs start with Cleveland, Green Bay, and San Fran. San Fran is a plus matchup no way you look at it, or no matter which way you look at it. But Pittsburgh, they've only been able to stop the run. Philly have been pretty much like that as well. And then Green Bay, besides Rico Dowdle, they've been able to stop everybody. In Cleveland, we know what they can do. So for me, I'm kind of thinking they'll have to lean more so on Caleb and the pass catchers in Rome Odunze, who's their number one, I'd like to believe, moving forward. So that's kind of where I'm buying low on this. Off the buy, even better. And I think it really presents a good opportunity to buy low, given the Colson Loveland absolute breakout game. People might be questioning maybe Loveland is the number one there. DJ Moore had a good game, even though his score was predicated on a passing touchdown that he threw to Caleb Williams. Again, could just be a nice, very nice spot to buy low on paper. I mean, Jordan Addison for Rome Odunze, I think you'd be able to get that done pretty comfortably, given the spot. Addison's been pretty good. But again, JJ McCarthy, that kind of situation, he was okay last week, but only 140 odd yards. How sustainable is that going to be for Addison down the stretch? Keenan Allen plus somebody for Odunze, I think you could probably do. Chris Olave for Odunze, that's an offer that I'm going to be shooting out in a couple of leagues right after this to see how that looks. And even Jamison Williams, he was a sell high candidate that we had earlier on this week or earlier in this year for myself. I think you could maybe even package him plus someone to get Odunze in that kind of turn. But Odunze for you, Mav, how do you feel about the Bears pass catches moving forward for the rest of the season?
Well, I felt like Odunze was a bit of a decoy on the weekend, to be fair, in that Cincy game. He was coming to that game with a heel injury. He was sort of 50-50 on Thursday our time, and then obviously got up for the game and was fine. But again, I don't think he was 100%. It almost felt like that game that Debo played a couple of weeks ago where he played, but he shouldn't have played. It was just a matter of, let's just get him out there, and he just might be a decoy. And I felt like that was actually the play. They were getting everyone else involved, but Odunze, who I think is their number one player or number one wide receiver in that squad. So I'm not looking into it too much. Even though he had a very, very high snap percentage, I don't actually think he missed a play. I think he had 100% snap percentage, but he just felt like he was a bit of a decoy. So it is what it is. But you're right. I think he's the number one. Oh, I think he's the number one. I'm confident by that. So this is a perfect chance to get him. To be honest with you, mate, Odunze's been pretty average in 3 of the last 4 weeks. All of them have been really, really solid matchups. Week 6, week 7, week 8, week 9 have all been really, really solid matchups, and one of those 4 matchups he's actually been okay in. So that manager might be getting just a little bit nervous on Odunze, and Matt might be looking to cash out on him now, and getting very nervous. So I'm an owner of Odunze in 1 league myself. I'm not really looking to move him on. I don't really have too much concern about Odunze. I'm not interested in trading him off unless I'm getting an upgrade. If that's a 2-for-1 or whatever, I'm cool in. But I'm not interested in trading Odunze. I think that he's only 23 years old. There's plenty of upside left in him, and he potentially could be a league winner at any point throughout the year. I think he's got that ability. And Cleveland, Green Bay, San Fran. Honestly, it's probably not ideal that last 3 weeks, especially being Green Bay and Green Bay and Cleveland, if I'm being honest. But that doesn't bother me. I'm just worried about Chicago's O-line because, again, Green Bay and Cleveland do have a really solid pass rush. That could put a bit of pressure on that Bears O-line. But if they can stop them from getting through, then Odunze has ability to break the game open. So, he's definitely one to get onto. And if you can buy a low on him, I think that's a smart buy.
I'm glad, Mav, that you told me that you won't be moving Odunze. That's just one less trade I've got to shoot out in some leagues. So, but then again, there is a lot of multiple leagues out there. A lot of managers are different. The Odunze manager could be just super down at the moment, and could be a nice opportunity to knock on the door. You could do a lot worse, that is for sure. But guys, that will do our players to buy low and sell high before week 10, dropping nice and early for you, and in just over 20 minutes. You can't get much better than that, Mav.
That's right. It gets that mind just tinkering. That's all it does.
Yeah. You've got to get moving. Send those trades out, people. There's only 5 more weeks of the regular season to go before you won't really be able to. And the trade deadline, actually, Mav, one thing that we probably need to touch on in a lot of leagues around week 12, it's usually kind of cut off. I like to do it up until, I think, week 14 personally should be the cutoff, because then you can kind of have stuff for the playoff run if you have any injuries kind of up to that point. But not too long to go until that happens, so you need to be moving fast.
Yeah, that's right. I think I agree with week 13. Week 14 is probably the maximum, but again, you can see a few dodgy GMs around there making some other deals that's not in the spirit of fantasy football that could also happen too. So we try and stop that where we can. But like week 13 is a good week.
Yeah, for sure. Love it. Thanks heaps, everybody, for tuning into this one. We'll be back tonight, as always, with our massive Supercoach trade talk. See you all there.
See ya.